So I just finished watching Limit progress, do their review with Sfia on Innocence, and very, very exciting to see WoW players having fun playing a video game. That video game in the video we just watched happens to not be WoW. And now we're going to watch Bellular, who has had very fond things to say at Final Fantasy XIV, have what I've been told is a spicy take on Blizzard. So we will see if this is as fun and delightful to watch as the last video. It very well may not be.
Views open me.
I mean, he's right, but also
Good man.
bastard. Like,
Good man.
yep. All right.
Okay, 9.1.5 soon.
I don't think it somehow, but anyway.
Well, you see, the thing is, if we were in the normal times, 9.1.5 would be on PTR right now.
Yep.
That's what it was like in Legion.
Instead, we're in the whatever the hell this year is.
And here's what I'm going to say. See the content cadence of Legion? That is what World of Warcraft players should expect.
Rap.
Well,
Content.
Dakor still says open it, so he might have...
I mean, should they expect it? That has not been the pattern. He named it once, and I'm not like... That is not... It's not like, oh, every expansion up until Legion, that's what we should expect. Like, go one before Legion. Warlords of Draenor is much closer to the patch cycle we're going to get for Shadowlands.
I have a crispy surprise.
All right, yeah. So I think that's exactly what, because I believe Dakar actually mentioned a short while ago he did get all of his conduits to 252. So this is the reaction of a player who did the hard work, and then all his hard work was pulled out from underneath him.
And how is that going to make him feel about investing time in World of Warcraft?
Gonna like absolutely he'll be back for 10.0, happy as can be at the gate, first one going, let's fucking go.
Okay, you know what? I'm going to say that this is it's like I almost wish that this was them trying to pull a fast one to get more player engagement, because at least then a smart human will have done something for a result.
Yeah.
But like if this is genuinely a competence issue, it's like, you know what? You guys don't have it. You literally don't have it. You can't pull this off. So change your ambitions to something that is in line with your capabilities, because you are not capable of being the stewards of World of Warcraft when it has systems like the ones you've been doing the last few years. You guys are just not capable. You are not capable of designing it in the first place. You are not capable of balancing it pre-ship. You are barely capable of balancing it post-ship. We know that is what it is. That is basically objective fucking fact. We saw it happen with corruptions. We saw it happen with the Azerite stuff. We've seen it happen in this expansion. It has happened consistently. And if you guys actually just went more simple, this stuff would be better.
God. So, when I was in college, every once in a while you would show up. I had to take studios for architecture, and you would show up for this studio, and you would have worked, multiple all-nighters all weekend, and you would show up, and you would walk in, and you would be immediately aware that your work was not up to the level that your classmates had done. Maybe you misunderstood the assignment. Maybe you misunderstood how it was supposed to be documented. Maybe you just didn't do a very good job. Maybe your idea just didn't flesh out as well as theirs. Your execution didn't. Maybe you got distracted. You didn't spend enough quality time working hard on it. But you knew right when you walked into class that it wasn't up to it. But some of my professors would just rip you like this. And I just remember you could just feel like that both your face was like red, like you were blushing, but you also felt like all the blood just drained from your entire body. Just sick to your stomach. It just, it doesn't feel good, because I think the worst part is that it's right. So you have to think, WoW devs aren't happy with delayed patch cycles. WoW devs aren't happy with systems that break. They're not happy with fights that are broken as the world first progresses through it. They're not happy. They're not enjoying putting out something that is not just crushing it. That's not fun for them. So you have to assume they walked in and they're like, well, this is what I have. And then Michael just rips them. And it's like I can just feel that blood draining all over again. Not because he's wrong. He's not wrong. It just sucks.
And I don't really care what sort of, oh, woe is me. Whoa. No, you're a bunch of professionals who are making a consumer product. If this was a...
Right, you chose. Nobody came and grabbed you off the street and said, you're making a game. You chose to work in gaming at Blizzard on World of Warcraft, and you worked very hard to get this far. And so you don't get to make it to what for many people was probably one of their top-end choices to work on a franchise they probably care very dearly about, and then go, well, I mean, what are you going to do? Like, no, you chose to play at this level of stakes. So I will say, like, the call out is fair because you're working at this level. You wouldn't be working on World of Warcraft if you really were a crap developer. There are people that say, oh, they're just a bunch of crap developers. Like, no, you don't make it onto one of these teams just for no reason. Like, Final Fantasy is not just reaching out to somebody that, like, they're not just sending out emails that said, like, hey, do you want to come help? Like, they're looking at resumes, they're looking at past experience. It's not like especially for things like systems, a lead systems designer is not like, well, do you want to go? Do you want to try? Do you want to have a go at it? Why don't you just wing it? These are people that got here because they were able to document and justify that they were talented enough to be given this chance. So it is fair to hold them to the standard of you didn't hold up to why you got hired. You have not held up to the standard that was expected of you. They did not just go hire the cheapest person they could find. They went and, like, many people applied for these jobs and they picked what they thought was the best one. So act like it.
A SaaS application? Because you're GaaS, Games as a Service. If this was SaaS and you were doing things that caused this much user churn, you'd be fucking booted so quick.
God.
Imagine if, like, Monday.com or Slack or something like that had such a low batting average with new systems and new designs. People would leave. That would increase their churn rate.
Yeah, gaming is still it's a very new industry in many ways. Advertisers don't yet know entirely how to engage with it. Content creators and all of the things surrounding it, the media, the press doesn't yet kind of have editorial standards. It may never, because the entry point is so easy to get into. What it takes to become a developer, what it takes like just across the board from indie all the way up, what it takes to be a consumer as opposed to like a company that's paying a lot of money for access to some software suites. Like it is not yet at the maturity, I think, just from an age standpoint. So I do think there definitely is some forgiveness that is offered to gaming for people that are a lot higher up than would happen in the software world. Like in the software world, if you were kind of an indie dev making a little a plugin or working on some open source project or whatever and it didn't work, then that wouldn't work out for you. But if you're the big name, right? That's unacceptable. If you're somebody that is bringing down these huge companies, he mentioned Slack, Netflix. When you think about professional suites, something like Microsoft Office or Salesforce, or these things that just have tons and tons and tons of impact. If you were creating this much frustration among your customer base, you would be gone. And so there is something about the fact that they're working on games that has given them a lot of slack in the line. But I will say, in trade for that slack, they get death threats, and they get there's these things that they're allowed. They're given that saying, right? They're given enough rope to kind of wrap themselves with, to kind of put themselves in this position where they are getting they're getting themselves in a world of hurt because they were given that much slack in the first place, as opposed to in other industries. There are times that somebody that caused this level of a system-wide problem would just be fired.
They would have their big financial spreads of, okay, well, you know what, this is not good. They talk about a whole bunch of, KPIs and OKRs and not hitting things and MMRs and all this, bullshit lingo that exists in that industry. And they know that, okay, we can't do this. I just feel like because World of Warcraft is a game, because maybe they're getting a little bit overzealous about, oh, it's a game where artists. This is not a, this isn't a science. This is art. That maybe there are just some basic as fuck things that like are happening. So I just, yeah, man, I don't know. They can't get this shit wrong like this. It's so obvious. I literally cannot imagine sitting down and designing conduits the way they did. And frankly, I think it's because, you know what? I'll give him this. Maybe I'd be worse at balancing. Maybe I can't do the complex math. But in terms of designing something that...
I mean, we're definitely armchair quarterbacks. Like, Michael, they run a gaming studio at Bellular, but, like, we're definitely armchair quarterbacks. So I am not saying, like, you just put anybody in that position. But it doesn't take an expert to know it's wrong. So we can't always tell you how to fix it or what should be different. But we can definitely tell you it's not right.
That won't make players want to jump off a fucking cliff to deal with. I could design something better. You could design something better. Matt can design something better. It's more a statement of humans being reasonable in general than it is for the WoW team, right? It's like I don't know how they're so bad at these systems. It's wild to me.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I mean, the only thing I think in addition to that is, like, it's, if you're designing this because you're designing it for the cold, hard MAUs, and that's what you want, then fine. You're failing at it, but fine. That's a valid choice.
And that's really the point, right? A developer on their own, somebody that is sitting with a code base and an artist that can back them with assets on their own, isn't really thinking about these kind of key performance indicators, these KPIs, such as in gaming, these MAUs, monthly active users. They're not thinking about that, but this is a full business. So the reason I say that we're armchair developers is we don't see the full picture. We use the term development to refer to the entirety of the Blizzard World of Warcraft team. It does include QA, whether or not they think they're developers. It does include artists. It does include management. And when we use that as a gaming community, the devs as a big phrase, we don't see the full picture. We don't know the time and resource constraints. We don't know when something has to be planned to interact with other things. We don't know what happens if, feature B fails. Does feature A have to absorb some of its things? And you've got your feature dialed in exactly the way you want it, but then because of them, you're like, well, you got to change it. And so because it was just going to break their thing, and you're like, how's that my problem? And so, this is a big moving ship, and I don't know that there are too many individual people that on their own are getting to sit at the wheel and steer this thing. And so when we see a system fail, such as conduits, it is not as simple as design better conduits. Now, it is as simple as we don't like conduits, but that integrated into a work schedule, that integrated into, we do have to have some form of loot and power system, and then every other system needs to somehow feed back to that. And there's a whole lot of people that touched that. People in the code base, people on, a team that's thinking about how these things work together, people who are managing workflows, people who are looking at the quality side of it, people who are looking at the art, people who are there to think about one particular portion of the player base versus another. Like, there are an enormous number of people that touch this. And so it is not as simple as like, well, if it were me, conduits would just be good, because it's not going to just be you. Even if we make Michael and Matt as a co-team the lead system designers at Blizzard, and they are perfect, it does not immediately solve everything. If it was that simple, WoW would just boot lead system designers every time it didn't work out, and we would get a new one until it landed right, and then we'd be like, oh wow, we found the right person. It is so much bigger than that, and I think that's what makes this so scary, that they've let it get to this point. Is it's such a chronic, systematic problem now that replacing one person doesn't give players a ton of confidence, because deep down we have to know this. Deep down we have to know that if Jay and Ian and all of the systems design team were all booted and somebody new came in, it doesn't immediately get better. It is not that simple. That might be part of the process that gets used along the way to a fix, but it's going to be something much, much larger that fixes problems that are this ingrained in the entire game, expansion patch after expansion patch, and expansion after expansion.
You can be a cold-hearted bastard who just wants engagement numbers up, but the way to get engagement numbers up for the long term, for a franchise, for an IP that you want to go forward, that's $1 billion IP. Like, the Warcraft IP is worth 13 point something billion dollars in an estimation in terms of sales so far. Like, that's its revenue. If you're designing for that, you design for the long term. You design for your players to be happy. You design for people to think nicely about it.
And I think they're trying to. I think they're failing at it. But, like, design, what he's describing here is intent. And I do believe when you listen to them talk at BlizzCon, their intent is that they think they are doing something that will design for the long term, that will retain players. I think retain is a key word they use. I think execution is where they're failing. Simply wanting, I hope our players love our game. Great, what are you going to do about it?
That's what you're supposed to do. That's how you keep players over time. You design things that they want to engage with. And if whoever's, in Blizzard designing things that make players upset or annoyed or bored or just tired, then they're doing their job wrong. Yeah. That's what I wholeheartedly believe and think. I mean, it's like, look at, like, they want to...
Yes, but there's two different sides to what Matt said there. And so he hit on two very different points that are both true, but they are independent of each other. You design for the long term, but if your players are not enjoying it, you did it wrong. So, like, I do believe they're thinking long term. It is a multi-billion-dollar IP, but the execution is not working out, which means whatever they did in the design phase is wrong. It doesn't mean immediately that we know what's right, but we definitely know that this is not it.
Use the Call of Duty mobile, or the Call of Duty franchise, as a benchmark. Call of Duty does none of this shit. It incentivizes, sure, but it doesn't do any of this fuck the players stuff. Maybe a little bit in the monitoring.
What? Matt, a lot of times I disagree with our the way we phrase. We come at things from different angles, and we look for different things in games, and so we're going to be on different sides of some issues, though we like a lot of the same games, but...
Fuck the players stuff. This wholeheartedly believe and think. I mean, it's like, look at, like, they want to use the Call of Duty mobile, or the Call of Duty franchise, as a benchmark. Call of Duty does none of this shit. It incentivizes, sure, but it doesn't do any of this fuck the players stuff.
You have not played Call of Duty then. Call of Duty absolutely screws its players. It does not give a crap. They will sell a gun that is literally pay to win, like is better than other guns. And they're like, well, if you don't play 9,000 hours or give us money for a game you already paid for and expires in a year. No, Call of Duty is not the bar to not screw players. Call of Duty is the fear. Call of Duty is what we are afraid will happen to Blizzard, that they annualize a franchise to cover up mistakes. When there is a good generation or a bad generation of Call of Duty, it doesn't matter because they reset it every freaking November. They will ship it even if it crashes on your console. They will ship it on time. They will ship it for PS5 and Xbox Series X when other games are delaying, because they can't delay it because they want to make you pay another $60 next November. Call of Duty is a disaster when you are talking about caring about players just having fun. It is a game seeking whales. It is a game where they charge you $60 annually to then charge you season passes and microtransactions, and then reward the players that do that while telling the players who don't, you can come on in, it's going to be great, baiting them in at the $60 purchase tag, and then once they've been in long enough, completely screwing them after that. Call of Duty is not the example of how to run World of Warcraft. It is not what we want. So to say that, oh, well, there's this other game in their community that does not screw their players, no. I played the last Call of Duty because Halo was delayed, not because Call of Duty is actually good for players.
Maybe a little bit on the monetary side, maybe a little bit on some balance issues sometimes.
Yeah, do you want that big knife? The big good knife that in Blops 4 they put in a loot box?
Yeah, I mean,
But
yeah.
generally I get you 100%.
Yeah, so they stop that stuff. The players and their engagement, and because you want good engagement, you want quality engagement. You don't just want engagement.
Call of Duty just wants engagement. They have 3 separate teams that are in rotation. Blizzard does not have... We talk about TikTok. They literally rotate, and 2 of the teams, I actively don't like their games. So I can only play every 3rd Call of Duty anyway. Maybe 2 out of 3. Definitely not the 3rd one. I don't like the Modern Warfare team at all. I haven't liked anything they've put out.
Everyone's just gonna melt. And it's not like a judgment on your ability as a designer, because, well, I suppose it sort of is.
Oh, it is.
It sort of is, like, but, don't take it personally if you're getting feedback on something and it's not right. You aren't your work. You're what
That's
you
fair.
can do eventually and afterwards. So actually, grow a spine and do it better next time.
Yeah, and
Don't do it the fucking same next time and hope we eat it up this time.
And that is something Blizzard takes its criticism incredibly personally, because they believe that they have a really good IP and they believe that they've worked really hard, and B, they have a history of not needing to deal directly head on with criticism, and so they haven't had to get good at it. They have not failed hard enough in the past to have grown up into a nice big kid studio that can actually handle proper criticism. And as a result, when players criticize, they have a tendency of doing this. You don't know what you're talking about, child. Sit down. And that means that we look for feedback things. We look at like PTRs, we look at forums, we look at Q&As, and we see these things as what they are for other gaming companies. A chance to offer feedback, but instead is a chance to either praise them, ask fluff questions, or be told that we don't know, that we don't like the game.
They'll go, it's just those toxic people. They'll leave. They'll go away.
Yeah.
They'll go away, and then it'll be the people who I like will give me good feedback on my system.
It's not.
And I understand there can be haters in the mix, right? Sometimes a piece of criticism is, your game is crap, I would make it good, I hope you lose your job. What do I do with that? What about that is actionable? But there are also really thoughtful, really reasonable things about, here is why this doesn't work as well as this system in the past. Here are the 4 things I don't like about this game while I'm still actively playing your game. I really appreciate that this does this well, but I really wish that it did this better. I think that this one particular thing is incentivizing bad behavior. I think, having actually completed your bad system, even though I didn't enjoy it, that this is my feedback, where it is actionable. It is something where you can take that in and you can process that. And it comes from a point of caring about your game. It comes in a respectful tone. It is well written and easy to understand. It is documented from more than one point of view. And those are things that they have to listen to. So I am not saying you have to listen to every hater that has access to a keyboard or brief time on a microphone. There are times that the Blizzard fan base, like any other fan base, has a couple of people who are just going to shout at the top of their lungs, and you have to just turn those people down and get your job done. I understand that. You are the professional developer. In theory, you do know best. But there are other times where you and your dev team, while you might individually be more talented at knowing game dev than any one person that is offering criticism in that community, you have to realize that when you are getting tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, or millions of points of feedback that all align on a common note that does say, hey, you're doing this well, but you're doing this wrong, and these are examples of sorts of things we'd like to see in the future from your games or competitors' games, you have to at some point listen to those. You have to. Those are helpful criticism. They are offering a chance to at least say, stop doing this thing, start maybe trying something in this direction, which will ultimately be your call. But you have to at least stop repeating the same mistakes.
No,
That's not what a professional does.
exactly, yeah. And this harassment discourse has got really messy. It's getting to the stage where some people seem to think that, like, you know, yeah, if, let's say there's a restaurant I like, and, you know, new chef comes in, they swap out the chef. Suddenly, you order a steak, medium rare, and it comes to you fucking well done. And then it turns out, oh, this thing's not as good, that thing's not as good. To say, hey, whatever's going on in your kitchen with your, let's just call them the food design team. My analogy for the systems design team. It's like, as a customer, you're more than welcome to be like, that's shit. And if you want this restaurant to be a good restaurant, you need to fix that problem.
And that doesn't mean the customer is saying they can do it. They've already proven that if they can do it, they're not willing because they're here paying you. So they're here consuming your service. So I'm not telling you I can make the steak better, but I am saying you can.
Something's going on and it's not good. That is what it's like here. Like, don't be contacting individuals and stuff like that. Absolutely. And I feel like all this would be a lot easier if Twitter didn't exist, basically.
Oh, for sure.
But yeah, man, that be it.
Yeah, it's a case of, the restaurant analogy is a good one. If someone like leaves a review for the food and goes, hey, this wasn't quite what I expected, that's like the first step. The first step would be someone going, this wasn't very good, I'm not happy. That's the first point of addressing feedback. Because if you don't do that, then suddenly you'll wonder why. And let's pull this number out of thin air. This is absolutely not in any capacity a spoiler for an upcoming video or anything, but let's pull a number out of thin air. Let's say something around 50% of your regular customers that come in for dinner just stop showing up.
Yeah. It's not like we've spent weeks researching this and found a whole bunch of data, and that basically is what's going on, and also matches with what Scott Johnson said, where this is like a drop bigger than what they thought.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like if you show up at restaurant open and half your tables are empty, that's too late. That's too late to make the changes. You need to make them immediately and intelligently, because if you're literally months late at that point, if not years late, because that's how restaurant reputations end up going.
Yeah, what happens if a restaurant changes their fucking fries? Yeah. And you used to have these nice crispy fries, now you have these horrible, mushy, terrible fries. If they get feedback the new fries are bad, they had better change how they do that shit within a week to get it better. If that restaurant waits friggin' 6 or 12 months and is just known for having bad fries, and that is somewhere where there is a tight feedback loop of, people need food. Where am I going to go eat some food? It's very obvious for a restaurant if their food is the problem, right? In a good restaurant, they're going to fix that problem.
The problem is that they haven't swung this poorly in the past. And I'm not saying they haven't had mistakes, but they've always had those mistakes be something that people were willing to weather. So they have not been hit with this level of criticism and this level of unsubscribe in the past. They've always been able to ultimately cover it up with retaining players. And retaining players is something where getting somebody who is still playing your game but is unhappy back to happy is not as expensive as getting somebody who is left because they're mad to come back with an open mind and then stay and be happy. That is much, much, much more expensive. So at this point, they are kind of past that. Now, I will say, the too late thing, nothing they can do. They're here now. So I wouldn't say oh, well, then just give up. I would say the best time to fix it would have been in the past. The second best time to fix it is right now.
With Blizzard, it just seems that with Classic being mixed in and a bunch of other things, and also, it's a game, there's an artistic element, so you could say it's a bit less cut and dry. Yeah. But it just seems like the feedback loop is not tight enough, and people have just Shit just goes on for too long and they don't feel the heat when they should.
Yeah. Also, the creativity element of food and games is kind of sort of in the similar vein when you get to high enough of prestige. Where if you go into a high class restaurant or even something that's like mid level and above, like we're not even talking Michelin stars here, we're talking just.
I will say that if you're going to compare this to food, you know, World of Warcraft is much closer to the food science that goes into something like if you work for Yum, who owns Pizza Hut, the largest restaurant company in the world. And so it's much closer to something like McDonald's, where you may have local flavor profiles, but you are trying to maintain a product that is satisfying millions of points of view, millions of times per day. And so it is not as simple as like, I made a really exotic thing for this really one expensive customer. You need a whole lot of people to give you a very small amount of money each so that you can make up the large amount of money that you are trying to manage across a global initiative.
You know, good Saturday night, have a cocktail or wine with your dinner food. Like, there's going to be creativity involved in that. There absolutely will be, because that's what cooking kind of is. You know, different from like a chippy, which is, you know, a different story altogether. Yeah. But the creativity in food and games is fairly similar in a sense, I think, where you still have a quality to actually get to. You have a quality bar you have to make in whatever realm of creativity. Your ability to be unique in that space is relatively limited. It's there, but it's limited, and it still has to be good before anything else, because like, you're not Heston Blumenthal, and I'm sure even Heston Blumenthal stops to think, well, this actually tastes good. I mean, he's got a reputation for being, you know, what do they call it, the molecular gastronomy, is that what he is? Yeah, that completely insane stuff. It's really hyper creative, but not everyone's going to want to eat that. And if you're making a product, you're not doing something for yourself.
Remember that this is also not, we made a good dish and we're going to leave that dish on the menu. This is an evolving franchise satisfying people who want to come back and eat something continually different that they also enjoy across a number of different flavor profiles, if you will, worldwide, across a number of different gaming verticals at a company that has other IPs at the same time. So one IP can afford to be in a downtick. As opposed to if you are a Michelin style restaurant and you have a seasonal menu and you're making really good things and you go through a bad season, it puts you in a world of hurt. They can afford a bad season. They have had bad seasons because there are other games backfunding this.
Making a product. You're making a product for the company you work for. And that can sound a bit, you know, harsh, you know, capitalism driven, or you work for the company. But there's a balance in the middle where you're creative and you make something for a customer. And I think I actually talked about this a couple weeks ago, where it's not all creativity, it's not all product, it's somewhere in the middle. That's what a game is actually like. That's what games are best for, when they're made for people, but with a little bit of love from the creator. And you have to make it fuck.
Right. Blizzard started as just love for the game. And the reason they needed Activision in the first place was they needed the money. They weren't good enough at managing the business side at the growth rate that they were. I don't know that anybody could have been. It was insane to manage this. They needed somebody that could come in and handle that side of things and assist with that side of things. And so it is both. You have to have good business. So a lot of times when we talk about Final Fantasy, people are like, I love the passion, I love the creativity, I love the design. But they underestimate when we see these interviews and these panels with, Yoshi P and the team that talk about the money and talk about the workflows and talk about the, KPIs that they look for, and the fact that he has people on staff that help him research into what else is going on in the industry, not just the types of games he plays, but other games that could also appeal to the same players that play his games. It is a business side as well. It's not as fun to talk about. It's not as glamorous to talk about. It's not the thing we cheer for or makes us cry, but it is something that is happening. It is not about, I'm passionate about this, I showed up and worked a lot of hours, I am therefore guaranteed perfection. There is an entire series of business choices that also happened that made Final Fantasy to what it is right now. And World of Warcraft can be mismanaging both sides. They can mismanage the creativity, and we can feel that, but they can also be mismanaging the business side. When we see these, talks of how QA is paid and managed, and we see big layoffs, and we see bonus structures go out to people on top, but then we see the way individual employees are treated, and not even talking about the ethical concerns at Blizzard. We're literally talking about just business choices, just how people are paid and how people are given basic compensation packages at like an HR level. Do they have time off? Do they have the support they need? Do they have the tools they need? Are the teams the size they need to be? And these are all concerns long before we get to the massive, tragic, awful ethical things going on there, as well as the fact that creative-wise, they're not doing great. So, it's not just I had a good idea and I worked hard, so I'm guaranteed success. You need both sides.
Fucking good. If you don't make it good, people are like, this is shit. Well, it's really creative, yeah, but it's shit.
Yeah, it's like, just think about the most recent stuff.
Yeah.
Domination, overall, from a gameplay perspective,
Yep.
Covenant's big dud.
Yep.
Soulbinds, big dud.
Yep.
Conduit's big dud.
Those are 3 different systems that were all aiming to fix something. So I do want to note that when you are calling for them to try to do something that aims to be a fix, it is not because they're not taking at-bats, it's because they're striking out.
Shards of Domination, big dud. I mean...
Oh, man.
Imagine if you hit the N key in your keyboard. Well, it wouldn't
Yeah.
be for you because you've got different binds, but imagine you hit the talent, whatever button.
N is my talent key, actually.
Oh, nice. Imagine
Yep.
you hit that, right?
Mhm.
And you have a row and you just got to choose between your Covenant kits.
Yeah.
I mean, you're a paladin, so you're like, do I Ashen Hollow or Divine Bell or Divine Toll?
That's meaningful choice.
Would you not be change up your gameplay?
Yep.
On it. Oh wait, we can't do that.
Yeah, can't.
We can't do that. So yeah.
Yep.
It's not that they're not trying, it's that they're not succeeding. And it's that when they don't succeed, rather than say, hey, we messed up, does anybody have any ideas on what parts you didn't like? Not even necessarily offering solutions, just literally what parts we can tell overall that people are not happy. Can you tell us a little more about what you're not happy about? Instead, it's, we tried, we failed, and then when you told us that you didn't like it, I said, shut up and eat it. And so, like, that's the problem here. And then it comes out that it's not like you're being great to your own staff. It's not like you're great to, it's not like, oh, well, we just hate the customer, but inside we're a big family. No. You're not being great to each other either. And so then in addition to that, you look at the money and it's not being managed either. So you've made the internal people mad, the external people mad, the people who are the investors, you've made them mad. And so across the board, you're just mismanaging every single side of this. And I don't know that you can fix them one at a time. It's going to have to be a holistic approach. One may come online before the others, but it's got to be something that aims to fix all 3. And it's going to be hard. It's going to be complex. I'm not saying I want that job or I can do that job, but I am saying that whoever gets that job needs to want to do that job and be able to. And I don't know where that person is and how they find them. And it's not really my problem as the customer, because if you don't do it, I'll just go play something else. You're not the only game in town. And so I think they are very much learning, we told you it was wrong. You told us we were wrong. We'll just leave. We are not obligated to you. There is no contractual agreement that imprisons us inside Azeroth. We can just go play something else. And maybe if that other game screws up, you'll get another opportunity. Or maybe if you create something brilliant time and time again, you would get back some of the same people. You could probably, because there's new gamers every day, you could probably grow back to the same numbers. But I don't even know if same should be the goal. I think it's time to move on to something different, because clearly trying to maintain the same didn't work out this time. So you've got to do something. We can't tell you exactly how to fix Blizzard. It's too many, too broad, too systematic of problems. But we can tell you all the times you get it wrong, and maybe if you try listening, you can learn about how to make it a little better. Kinda.